So we're back. I don't even know if I'm going to be in the shot right now. I think because of the snow I'm higher than I normally am. Well, we got sun this time. Last time we didn't have sun, but this time we got sun. I don't know how long because some clouds are rolling in. But hopefully it'll work with us a little bit here. I'm trying to get comfortable, but I can't. Alright, so the next podcast, or the next few we're doing, I think are going to be getting kind of down to nitty gritty. Not super serious, but might be kind of cumbersome, or at least the last two of this next three are going to be pretty, not heavy, but information laden, potentially longer too. Oh, there we go. There's the clouds. So the next few podcasts I'm going to do are going to be dense, we'll call it. So I figured we'll have some fun this time. Or not even fun. We're going to go about it, like, I don't know, pick a whimsical topic here, or something. I was riffing on this idea. We'll start here. Let's check if we're recording. Everything's all set. Oh, I believe so. Okay. So I was riffing on this idea, and it doesn't necessarily need any information or background knowledge to be laid out. We can kind of get into this one and have fun. And like I said, I don't need to catch you up on anything. We can just kind of have this conversation. So I figured it'd be cool to have right now. I didn't really plan it out yet, which I probably should have, but I wanted to get comfortable with the live stream format too. So I'm using this as practice for myself. But anyways, so just to touch on the last topic, or the thinking through models, this is a good reason why I brought this up. I'm not saying that this is true. It's just an idea we're going to walk through and think about. And it doesn't necessarily come from a model someone else has pushed or an idea someone else has pushed. It more or less uses one of the other tactics I like to use, kind of just sitting back, looking at what is and what is around, and kind of deriving understanding from that. So this idea starts if we kind of look at the economic system of rule that we have in place for us. It's also windy today, so I don't know if you guys will be able to hear that. So this idea, I'm wearing my hood. I don't want to, but it's cold for a bit. So this idea, it starts off with looking at the system of economic rule we have for ourselves. Now, whether we want to say it's this group or that group, or whatever small elite, or if there's no elite controlling it and it's just the system, or it's just the system perpetuating what it will. But either way, I think it's kind of irrefutable, if we take a step back and look at it, that we have a system of economic rule. There's a system of commerce and money that dictates our daily actions and habits. So if we look at that system, I feel like it'd be pretty fair to say, or at least I feel like it would be pretty obvious that system, that for this argument, let's say there is a ruling elite that is using this economic system to perpetuate their end. Wouldn't it make sense for that system of control? Wouldn't it make sense for that system, that created system, to be designed to kind of be perpetual, sustainable, just kind of exist forever, right? If we look at, I'm just trying to figure out which way we'll do this. So if you look at feudalism, right? You had your serfs, you had your nobles, you had your kings, and your landlords, and the whole. That wasn't a system of economic rule, but it was more of one of cultural rule. Yes, you had your commerce and you had your economy, but that was mainly for trade. It wasn't like at the root of control. The root of control was bloodlines and culture, really, at that time. And that doesn't die. That's not a system that's going to fall apart unless the ideological basis that came to that conclusion is ripped apart. In that way, it's sustainable. It's forever. It doesn't self-implode. Now, if we look at our economic system, the system that rules us primarily, it seems to be designed to self-detonate. And that doesn't make sense. That was kind of like a whole, like kind of like a, not the last nail in the coffin, but a nail in the coffin, for this conspiracy-minded or model of the world that involves an elite ruling us. Why would they design a system to self-detonate? And how does it self-detonate? I'm not super up to date on a lot of this information, and I'd say economics is probably one of my worst topics, but the system, the way it's designed through fractional reserve banking, you create, so every time you give out a loan, right, for money, you expect a percentage of that money that isn't necessarily in the economy, right? So say if you're giving out $100 and you give $100 and you can only give $100 because that's the only $100 in the system, but then you create $10 of debt, say, or the person has to pay $10 of their 100 or $20 of their 100. That's money that's not in the system, so we have to keep pumping debt into the system to then allow for that debt. Our value is created on debt, and that's why we have to keep pumping and printing money into the system, and that's why we continuously have inflation. There's also other stuff too. Our money's not backed by any sort of monetary or physical resource, and we all know that, and there's countless stuff. And again, and like I said, you'd have to go to a serious economic expert to really get to the meat and potatoes of what I'm trying to say, because like I said, right now I'm not going to be able to give you that, but it's undeniable the system is made to self-detonate. Eventually there will be a point where the money, because of self-inflation due to fractional reserve banking and the creation of debt and the continuous need to pump resources and more money into the system to allot for that, is going to nullify the currency. The currency isn't going to exist, or it's not going to be worth anything. It's not worth anything, then you don't have that economic system of rule. And I'll make that point too further. That's another entire podcast. But we're just making the argument right now. We're having fun with it. So if the system's designed to self-detonate, how is there a ruling elite? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, we're gonna see if we're recording. Okay. So that doesn't make any sense. Why would an elite go through all the trouble to create an entire system, starting into the 1850s or whatever it started, to have it and design it so that it implodes? If they need us, why would they create a system that, at any second, or they can just allow it to kind of, we keep having this debt ceiling increase over the last 4 years. We're just pushing off the inevitable, and they can do that with the system they have. So it's kind of designed to be able to be allowed to implode. We can keep it going for as long as we need, but when we need it to implode, we can kind of just let it. So this I've been scratching my head over for a little bit. And this is the idea I was kind of riffing off of. It kind of started to make a little bit more sense to me when I really started to kind of see or look at the transhumanist movement. This is also another undeniable movement that's happening in our zeitgeist. There's the transhumanist movement. There's also this theory or idea that we live in a simulation. I don't believe that to be true for various reasons. I don't think a simulation would have unembodied archetypal forces, or I guess it might, but I don't think it would be the way it is. I think it would be more of a materialist model that they're pushing, which is why they're pushing it, and then they're moving into this simulation theory idea. We'll deconstruct all those when we get to deconstruction of materialism. Those are my next 3 podcasts. Those are going to be the dense ones. Hopefully, at least. So you got this movement pushing this simulation theory. You got this movement, which is not entirely part of this, but different. But then, coming through that, you have this transhumanist movement that is obsessed with combining humans with some sort of biological, robotic, artificial intelligence machinery. They want to infuse humans with a mechanized being, or, infuse us with it, or allow us to be taken over by it, or create an entire being, or artificial being that then they can have their consciousness uploaded to, and this is all in their writings. And if you're at all, I'm very cold, FYI. And if you're at all in this culture or thought train, you know what I'm talking about. But there is this movement of elite, the Silicon Valley type, and even more, that are really thinking about this ability to upload your consciousness into a machine, into a supercomputer, into the Matrix type thing, or something like that. This is something that's also highly concerned me. For other reasons we'll get into. Mainly that I feel like by doing that, you're subverting or ignoring and then not utilizing your biological, in-tune consciousness with the universe. We'll unpack that later too. But you got these two forces kind of working off one another. You got the system of economic rule pushed by, let's say, the elites. We don't unnamed yet, but we'll get into that. These same elites, though, are really obsessed with this transhumanist movement of getting us, evolving us past our human point, this point of us right now, humanity. And then the wires kind of crossed, and then I was like, oh, that might be what's going on. And I feel like it'd be interesting to think about it or look at it like this. What if, and I'm just saying what if, this is a what if, it's a riff. What if these elite, when they set up this system, had kind of an overarching vision of where stuff would go? Maybe they don't understand that they could upload their consciousness into machines, but let's say they kind of had like a far out idea of that, like in the 1850s or whatever, when they set up these systems of economic rule. But they understood that to get to this, because part of this transhumanist thing is this like envision of like nirvana, or it's like this vision of like nirvana or heaven, or like this, like, let's evolve past our human troubles and like, live as the star people would. I don't know what their rhetoric is. But a lot of it is evolving past what this human vessel is through technology. And to do that, you're going to need a bunch of technology, especially if you're coming from like the 1850s or something like that. There's a lot of technology that needs to be developed to get to that point. And how do you, kind of like a Sims game, how do you develop how do you develop a technocracy is really what's going on. You need the populace to be engaged in a serious amount of industry. You need people in the biotech fields, you need people in robotics, you need people in science, you need people in STEM, mechanics, math, this, that, AI, computer programming. And before that, you need scientists to make the computers. You need 1850, what do we have? We had at least electricity. Turing wasn't for a long goddamn time. I believe they at least had, because like, as we know, there's technology they have that we would only be able to compare to magic currently. So, what do they have in the 1850s? Where do they know the technology would go? It's up to debate, but I believe they had a good idea, and they had a good idea of what kind of technocracy that even needed to form, right? And who was even to say when this idea was started, that they were even going to upload their bodies and consciousness into these artificial mechanisms or whatever? Maybe they just if we get to a point of enough technology and enough automation, we can automate our entire lives, our manufacturing systems or whatever, and then we can just kill off the serfs. We can just kill them off, screw the serfs. We'll live in a technocratic utopia or whatever, and we'll get rid of the unwashed masses, and we'll have just the Gentile people living in luxury. Again, to do that, though, you need an immense amount of industry, and this is where this idea comes from, or this is what I kind of just like a random idea I had. I think it could be pretty obvious, at least in this model that I'm pitching, that in the 1850s or, even earlier or later, whenever, I know 1913 or whatever that is when the federal bank was established and a lot of that stuff, but I think it goes back a little bit earlier than that, even the 1770s or whatever. There were some global organizations forming even in the 1700s, but anyways. They have this shot, they have this goal of what they're trying to get to. They need a significant amount of technology to get there and achieve it. They need a huge populace, they need a civilization to develop these technologies, You need the one-off inventors that they don't necessarily maybe have. They need the thousands of people to put man-hours in to develop this stuff. So what do? They develop a economic system of control with carrots and sticks to then, subvert the entire population to then work for generations to create this technocratic utopia, which then they'll allow the system that perpetuated this and pushed us into this, or at least baited us with carrots and sticks into this, that system implode, let the entire thing implode. We'll be left on, probably universal income for a bit, or worse, and then they'll have their utopia. Makes sense. It really does. I don't know if it's what's actually going on, but it is an interesting thought, and it does kind of make some sense. It's kind of like if you look at it like a Sims game, or like Civilization 5 or whatever, okay, we got to get our, society up to intelligence 0.7 and technology 0.8, and then we'll be able to, create machines we can upload our consciousness to and live in forever. I don't know. I'm not advocating for any of this, by the way. I'm just saying that's what they're kind of doing and saying. It's interesting. That's all I'm saying. It would make a lot of sense. Let's go invade the underclass into creating what we need and want, and then when they're useless, we'll allow the system that's given them relevance to peter off and die out. Kind of makes sense. I don't know, especially, once they got the transhumanist stuff and all the technologies they need and want, what's the use for us? And that's another thing too, and people are also talking about that, especially once the universal basic income comes in and everything's automated, what's the use for us? That's the first step, at least of this model, and that's why I wanted to have that conversation before this one. Models. Put this at a 40 to 60% accuracy. It depends. I think it's pretty logical. I just don't, there's not a lot of information out there to say that that's how they necessarily designed the system to implode. But if you look at it, it's designed to implode. And there's a global elite right now that's, pushed the system forever, that it's really kind of head over heels for transhumanist ideologies and philosophies. To do that, you need technology. To make technology, you need a civilization. It's kind of all one and the same. It's all pretty cut and dry. But it was pretty cool. I was just sitting there and I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why is it in like feudalism? And then I was like, oh, the transhumanist stuff. They needed us to make it. So yep, we get, a bunch of paper bills that don't have any actual meaning for a while, and then we can have nice bags and clothes and cars that actually have no value because it was created from a system with no value, blah blah blah, out of debt. But yeah, we can have those things until we create the future utopia. So yeah, this is an idea I was riffing off of. Hopefully it gives you something to think about. I think it is pretty interesting, or at least plausible. I'm not saying it's definite at all. Just an idea I was riffing with, but I think we are... What's that one? A phone? Planned obsolescence. I can't snap. It's called planned obsolescence. We are planned obsolescence. We are planned to be obsolete, probably in 25 to 50 years. Underclass people, If you're rich and bougie, you'll have a robot servant, but us underclass people, we're potentially going by the wayside. And that's interdependent of what I'm saying here. Through automation and through, universal basic income and all this other different stuff, we're going to be made pretty useless. But besides the point, I was just trying to explain why this system is made to self-detonate, and that doesn't make sense with a global ruling elite. But if they designed it that way for a specific end, I think it makes even more sense than how much it didn't make sense not knowing that. I think that makes an immense amount of sense, and worth thinking about. Good? Decent? How we feel? We'd have the sun for a little while. I was excited about that. Okay. Should I ramble? What do we got for a time? 23 minutes? That's fine. I already did a decent, significant amount of rambling. So, bye. I know you're supposed to do you're supposed to say the same thing every time, and every time you leave. Every time you say hi, you're supposed to say the same thing, and every time you say bye, you're supposed to say the same thing, but I hate marketing and branding. Maybe I do some marketing or something, but it's not going to be that. So bye. I might take a little bit of not a break, but I want to prepare these next 3, so there might be some time between this one and that one. Another reason why I wanted to shoot this one off. So this was just a fun one, like I said, just to fill the void. The more serious ones are coming. These next ones are going to be a great majority of what I can provide as a speaker. It's going to be a good majority of it, so take it for what it is. There's a lot of I can always ramble about stuff, but this is going to be a majority of what constitutes my thinking. So I'm just going to take some time to probably prepare that. I don't know exactly when, I'll be popping them out, but I will be. So, yeah, for now, watch out for the elite technocracy. I don't know. It is undeniable. It's undeniable the system of the economic system is meant to control us and, plan our behavior with carrots and sticks. Undeniable that there is that same elite or whatever that set the system up is obsessed with transhumanism. It would only make sense that they'd create an economic system of rule that is able to self-detonate if they planned for the need for an immense amount of technological development, they needed a populace to do it. All I'm saying. Interesting idea. One I had the other day. It kind of put some puzzle pieces together for me, you know. People have probably already said this, but, you know, maybe I put it in a more direct manner or something. Who knows? But just a one-offer idea. Eventually I want to get these into longer formats, like, you know, probably like my barefoot running one, you know, it's like an hour and 20. I feel like that's a good time. I don't like the 20-minute ones or like the 30-minute ones. They're not, I feel like I want to give some more oomph, you know, so, but until I get more comfortable on camera and while I'm still kind of practicing, I'm picking off these one-off topics, you know, so I feel pretty decent though, so when I get into these next ones, let's get this ball rolling. Okay, I'm gonna leave. I'm cold, alright? I'm done. I'm gone. Woo! How do I turn this off? I lied. Back. Alright, so I don't like to do this all the time. My little addendums at the end here. But I was thinking about what I said. I didn't articulate it quite right, so let's be specific here. Yeah, no, normally I don't like to do this, but when I get it wrong, I like to, you know, make it right. So there's something specific about the idea I had that normally I wouldn't come back here to say it or, like, you know, start the camera again. But I was thinking about what I said and I didn't put it exactly the way I should or make something specific. So we're just quick right now. One of the origins of the idea is not that the economy is set to implode, right? It's that it's set to implode seemingly with a time frame. It wasn't designed, so like, okay, 1850, like I was saying, 17, whatever the hell, you know, this elite or whatever, hypothetically, come together and make an economic system of rule. It wasn't that it's like, can detonate at any point, because that would, you know, probably signal something different, but it's the system and the way it was designed, like I said, through fractional reserve banking, and when you give someone money and they have debt, they have to pay that with money that's not accounted for in the system. So you have to continuously inflate the money to account for that. So then as the money goes down the pyramid, it becomes less value when you have more at the top, you know, yada, yada, yada. That system is designed to implode within like 350 years, and then maybe you can tack it to 450, and that's weird. You know, why would you create an economic system, like a set of rule, that's set to implode specifically, and this is why we're doing this, within a time scale? It's so that you can allot for enough technological development. You know, we see a technocratic utopia. We see this in the future, and we'll try to create it. We need little worker bots to help us make it. You know, and again, say hypothetically they had no concepts or could conceive of, you know, this transhumanist upload your consciousness stuff, but let's get, you know, automatons or robots do all our work, and then once that's the case, you know, the underclass is, you know, useless, so we can, you know, dispatch of them. But let's set it and let's have it implode 350 years. We're trying to create this utopia, you know, this luxurious life that, you know, we don't even need to be preoccupied by the unwashed masses. But we need them to make it, and we project it's going to take 200 to 450 years. So let's make the system last about 300 to 350 years, and we can tack it and push it to 450, you know, maybe, and we're at like, what, 300, 350, you know, something like that. So we're seeing the beginnings of this economic system start to fall apart, but it's seemingly, like I said, by design, and that's odd looking at it, especially, you know, with the information or under this model that there's a global elite ruling us through an economic system of control. So the specific point I wanted to make is that there was a time scale. It's set to implode, like, the 300 years or something like that, so that there's an allotted time for this technological development, or seemingly so. And that's odd, and that's just, I wanted to make that point specific. Because I don't know. Yeah, okay, we make a system that can implode, and but there's no trigger to implode it. That's the thing. The system implodes on its own, so then there's no one fault of it except for the people that designed it. So you just got to think about it maybe that way. And like I said, this is all just hypothetical. This is just a whimsical idea to shoot off. Like I said before, we get into the nitty-gritty. I was thinking I might want to do one more podcast before I get to the denser stuff. I might pop another one off and then start doing that. We'll see though. I might want to create, or like kind of like this one, I might want to fix some mistakes I made in other podcasts and clarify stuff or other discussions. I don't even know if I want to call these podcasts, but so we'll see about that. But like I said, I'm not saying this is definitive or I think this way. But if you look at stuff, it's not a bad hypothesis. It's interesting, if nothing else. So, specific. There's a time scale. Because it makes it even more sense. We don't want them, the underclass, but we might need them for this amount of time to create what we need. I don't know, something. It's interesting, it helps make certain things make sense. But anyways, I am now leaving.